in the first episode, I showed you my collection of games that I hadn't played or hadn't played for over a year, and it looked like this. It's now mid to late April, and I've managed to play about 35 to 40 games, which is about 40% of that collection. So I've really been enjoying getting back into some of those classics like Everdell, Battlestar Galactica, Hadrian's Wall. So really glad I got to play those again. Also discovered new games like Castles of Burgundy, and I've also added a bunch to my trade pile, which is good. And I thought I would bring along a friend to talk about building and/or curating a collection. I've got Mike from the Board Game BBQ podcast. Mike, how are you going?
Good, mate. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. You did tell me that when we were talking about curating a collection that we legally had to say that you had to own all Zombicide games.
That's just known, I think. It's a known fact by now.
Yes.
You must own all Zombicides and all expansions.
Yep. Yeah. And no girlfriends turned fiancés can say anything about that.
Correct.
Exactly.
It's a law, and you have to abide by that law.
So I think it is very easy to build a collection. If you've got some disposable income, there's every website, channel, podcast has some great recommendations for different types of games. Whether on different play styles or different play numbers. There's some great games everyone can get because it's very easy to buy games. I'm sure you found that as well. That
yes.
I think the hard bit is shaping your collection. Mm-hmm. So how have you found that? Because I know, based on the start, is I have too many games at the moment. Have you curated your collection much?
My collection is quite large.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on around 400 odd games plus expansions. I do try to curate it a bit more now. So when you start getting to that point, you want to start thinking about why am I building this collection and who am I building it for? What else am I trying to get out of adding more games? So thinking about those player counts, thinking about levels of difficulty, those are things that you need to take into consideration. I think for myself now, having a lot of games, I got to think about, do I have many games that fill this void already? So if I'm buying a Euro game, do I have a game that already feels like this game, or do I think this might try to replace that game? I do need to start trying to be responsible and do the one in, one out sometimes. And
yeah, I mean, let's not go crazy with one in, one out.
Let's not go
crazy. I enjoy trading. So a lot of people, when they're getting rid of games, they'll sell stuff. Sometimes people are opening for trade because then you get rid of a game you don't necessarily want anymore, but you get a new one, which is exciting. It also means I like having some sort of fluid nature of some of my collection. Then I've got stuff that I like. I'm never ever leaving.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about the filling the holes. In sort of like, player count or style, and you don't need to have a cover for everything. I know you like a lot of tile laying games, mm-hmm. So like that you probably got more of those than say a mechanic that you don't like as much, where you might just have maybe only have a couple of deck builders as opposed to X amount of tile games.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'd probably try to, these things that I really enjoy and that I want to bring out a lot more, I'll probably try to have a few more of those options so I can change them out once in a while and, rotate that collection a little bit so they don't get too stale with people.
I guess there was a thing, I think that gets brought up every discussion like this, but it needs to be said, it's like, it is a hobby, just don't spend more than disposable income on it. I think that's just be sensible. You don't need every game. I think if they stopped making like board games right now and every day you played a game for the rest of like the next 50 years, you probably still wouldn't get through all the ones that have been made already.
That's right. There's thousands come out now, thousands. It's crazy how many, and that's I think the thing, someone like myself who loves trying new games and wants to find the next new best thing, that's the scary thing right now. So many are flying at you non-stop that you want to try them all, you want to play them all, and it becomes very overwhelming sometimes because you can't fit that many in your home, you can't spend that much money. So you have to start thinking like, well, Liam has a copy of this game. I guess I don't have to buy a copy because Liam has it. So having a good game group and friends in the hobby can help with that sort of as well, because sometimes you have to think, if I bought this game, I'm probably going to play with these guys anyway, most likely. This is my game group of maybe playing heavier games. So if one or two of them already have it, why do I really need to buy it? Like Ark Nova is a perfect example. My good friends that I would probably play Ark Nova with already have a copy, 2 or 3 copies within the group. So I can sort of justify not having to buy it, even though I want it. I can justify not having to buy it.
Yeah, I've got 2 sort of close friends with Terraforming Mars. There's 2 different groups that are covered for that. Like, okay, and I've also managed to pick up Ares Expedition, which is like the card game version. Like, I don't need to own that game then because it's covered. I also have a friend in our play group who doesn't own any games, and it doesn't matter because the people who own games, we just want to we want to play it and hang out with our friend. But like, you don't need to own that many games because between if you had a group of 4 or 5 and each person had 5 to 10 games, you would have still a lot of games to play.
Absolutely. There's always going to be options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that it's also the other thing of playing new games is the opportunity cost of each time you're playing a new game, you're not playing an old game. So for me, I like to trade, and so stuff is just sort of fine, or not. Maybe it doesn't hit the mark for the certain group that I thought it was going to be. I might offer to trade it. I know in the past you've sold some games to sort of either just to fund other purchases of games.
Yep.
How have you found that?
Look, it's sometimes a bit cathartic. Like you trying to find those games that I've already got many games that fill this void. Same thing like I said before. Sort of going through your collection, seeing what hasn't been played for a long time, or seeing once again, a lot of people have this game. I don't have to have it in my collection. It is sometimes nice to make more space for the opportunity of buying more. It's a circle of life in board gaming. Yeah,
I always found the various different hobbies or collecting things in the past. If I was selling hobby stuff to then buy other hobby stuff, it felt free. It's the same. The same cost if I used it from money from a salary, but because I sold something that's getting rid of something from a hobby, it feels free.
Yeah.
It was always nice. Let's put that aside for a moment, though. Obviously, we mentioned Zombicide, but is there any games that you think are never going to leave your collection that you love, that are sort of integral part? We talk about curating, which is obviously shaping down sometimes, but are a couple of games that you love and would never get rid of?
Absolutely. Like my top 10 sort of games, or games that have been in my top 10 previously, I don't think I'd get rid of, like things like Isle of Cats, or a lot of those tile laying games I've mentioned. Some of my, I carry 2 small bags wherever I go of a bunch of little small games, and a bunch of them will never leave my collection because they're games that are tried and true. They are great to bring out with anybody. Things like Skull, things like Illusion, these small sort of party games. I think they'll stay in my collection forever and maybe have to be replaced at some time because I bring them out so often because they're fun to play with your gamers, people who are really in the hobby, but they're also my good gateway games as well to bring people in. So those sort of games, especially for me, I run a board game group as well, so I always want to make sure I have those welcoming games to bring people in that everyone else can enjoy as well. So those sort of games always stay in.
And I guess having that game group justifies at least 200 of your games from your personal collection.
Well, I need to keep growing it.
Yeah,
it only
exactly.
makes sense. Yeah,
because otherwise, that game group is not going to be happy. So you need to keep them. You need to keep them happy.
You need to keep the people happy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Mike, thank you very much for talking. I don't know if we've actually given many good tips for curating collection, but it's been entertaining chat nonetheless.
Thank you.
About collections and sort of the hobby.
Thank you very much, Liam. Always a pleasure.